Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano. You remember that Super Bowl ad with Alicia Silverstone from Clueless? The company was called Racketon. Racketon is also a major partner of the defending world champion Golden State Warriors. Their CEO and president of Rakuten Americas, Amit Patel, loves Liverpool, soccer, football. But there's so much more than those three references. Amit Patel oversees 3,500 people as part of Rakuten Americas. He will describe in this conversation his philosophy when he goes into a meeting. He will talk about leading on his way up in his career. He will also talk about being a passionate person with regard to developing tech and understanding and caring for people. Our conversation starts now with Amit Patel. How are you?
I'm feeling a little exhausted. We're in playoff times, and obviously the Warriors are not making it easy on the fans here, but super excited, like you said, in the Bay Area. The weather's great, and generally very excited about what's going on.
Amit, we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about Racketon. We're going to explore all kinds of information in and around what you do every day in your wonderful company. But you mentioned it, so I'll go with it right now. Your relationship with the Golden State Warriors. Tell me how close they are and how much that is a passion for you to be associated with such a wonderful brand as the Warriors.
We're just extremely honored to be partnered with them, and it's been a key part of our strategy to sort of become a brand and a household name. And we've used them in many different ways, whether it is from a commercial perspective, from a business perspective. But I think the part that I wasn't fully appreciating at the very beginning, but have come to really love, is the employee engagement aspect of it. Like I said, we're very lucky. It's sort of a one-of-one situation. Only one company logo can be on the jersey, and for that to be us is an extreme honor. And to see the team do well and for us to feed off of that energy is fantastic to see on a day-to-day basis.
Talk about the origin story of that partnership with the Golden State Warriors, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have enough time for me to give you all the details, so I'm going to try to summarize this as best as I can. But
Okay.
Go back 5 or 6 years. We're a Japanese company. We're a household name there already. Operating in 70 or plus different businesses and services, with a grand ambition of trying to bring that same kind of ecosystem to the Americas. And as we sort of thought about doing that and rebranding some of our businesses to Rakuten, I mean, the first obvious issue is going to be brand awareness, name awareness, trust, all of these things. And I was lucky enough to sort of be involved in sports just through a passion of mine. Came across this idea that the NBA was introducing what they were calling patch partners at that time. I'm a big soccer fan, so I've sort of seen sponsorships and how impactful they can be on fans. I'm a big fan of Liverpool. I remember every time they won the championship, who was on the jersey. And so there's definitely some correlation and some brand trust that you can translate between the team and the people that they're partnered with. And so, long story short, we were very late in the game back in June 2017, approached the Warriors, and they were gracious enough to sort of give us some time. We met with them, and literally within that day, we're able to try and sort of at least do a handshake agreement with them, just given sort of our ambitions and how we positioned ourselves and what they were looking to accomplish out of this. So, like I said, there's lots of details I'm missing out, but we were very lucky and fortunate from a timing perspective, but also from an alignment in terms of what they wanted and what we wanted. It was really a great partnership, and the results have been magnificent.
So you articulated that perfectly, and that's exactly where I was going to go next. So I come from the team side, and I see that perspective aligning with the brand. But now you're describing in detail the partners, the other side of the equation, and your philosophy. So when you partner with a team like the Golden State Warriors, you're uncovering the values of each, organization. So how much of an alignment was there between the Warriors' values as a company and Rakuten's values as a company? And it seems like there was a parallel there, but I'll let you say it.
Yeah, so there's a couple different components to this, right? I mean, obviously, there is the team itself that has to wear this jersey with our name on that jersey. And, one thing that, they educated us on was the team itself, the players, the Draymonds, the Stephans, the Clays were actually going to play a part in this, because these are players who are not just going to put on any jersey with any type of logo. So the team behind the team, stealing a line from you, had to go sell this to those players. And so we helped them with that story. That's one component of it. The second component of it was sort of just the actual philosophies that you talked about: teamwork, innovation. We're talking about a team here that really redefined the way to play basketball. Stephen Curry is always going to be remembered as the guy who changed the game from the three-point line. And so these are all things that we as a company aspire to be, the values that we have. And so that was extremely important in terms of the alignment. The other thing I would say is going back to the team behind the team. Are these people we want to do business with? We're not interested in a 1 or 2 year partnership here. We're interested in a long-term alignment of values, of business, of how we show up, how we operate, all of these things. And so, it was very clear from that very first meeting we had at the Chase Experience Center. There was no Chase Center, by the way, when we had this meeting. It was just an office, and they had sort of, a whole experience that you would go through to bring what Chase is now to life. That was also a very important part of sort of the negotiations and getting online. But just the folks that we met with, the attitude they had, I will tell you, in that very first meeting, we didn't even discuss numbers, which is not typical when you're talking about a partnership like this, but maybe goes to sort of explain how much of a natural synergy there was across all of these different dimensions.
And that's a great point, a wonderful point. When you have a synergy like that and you get to numbers 3 or 4 meetings in, you have something there. So congratulations on that great partnership. So Amit, let's back up now. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about, your childhood and how you gravitated. You're the CEO of Racketon Americas. That's an accomplishment. And obviously I've done my research, and it was a steady climb for you, an ascension into leadership, obviously, and you've done quite well. But tell the folks all about yourself, where you are today. How did you get there?
So I'd say there wasn't any grand plan. This wasn't what I sort of woke up when I was 16, 17, 18 and said, this is what I want to do. So I'm very fortunate. And obviously there's elements of luck that, have to come to bear during that journey. What I will say when I look back and go, what are the pivotal moments? The very first pivotal moment, and this is going to sound like a really odd story, is one of my cousins came to actually live with us when he was going to school nearby to where we lived. He brought this computer with him, and I had never seen a computer before. And I'm talking about early 90s here. And I would just watch over his shoulder what he was doing when he was playing around with this computer. He would type in win at the DOS prompt, and this thing would come up. I mean, long story short, I was just fascinated by what he was doing, because back then everything was paper and pen, as we were doing our homework. And so that became an interest, and then an interest turned into a passion. And so I followed that through university. The idea of doing computing degrees or computing classes back then, still very novel, very new. Only a few universities offered it. So I found the one that did. I found the one that offered it alongside management. My dad was a business owner. I grew up in that environment. I myself, sold confectionery, you name it, everything in our stores as a teenager. And so trying to combine technology and business, not knowing much about either of them back then, became sort of my passion. And that's also what led me from moving from the United Kingdom. We were living in London at the time, to Silicon Valley, because back then Silicon Valley, when you were living in London, was sort of the place that you wanted to be if technology was in your future. So very fortunate to have a green card, get a green card, pick this place. That was in 2000 once I graduated. And ever since then have lived here. And like I said, been very fortunate to be surrounded by great people. And through the years have managed to progress.
So you combined, in your words, business and a love of tech. However, you're the CEO. You're responsible for people, and that could go under obviously both categories, but obviously more so towards the business. So as you were coming up as a leader, who were some of your mentors? And you modeled, you said your father, you worked for him initially, right, as he started a business. But as you were coming up in your career, who were some people that were influential in the way that they ran their business, interacted with people, and tried to be, I would assume, well-rounded in their approach?
Yeah. And so again, think early in my career, the idea of a mentor, wasn't in my vocabulary. We today take a lot of effort to make sure we are talking about mentorship. We are talking about learning and development across all ranges of leadership, and all ranges across the company. But go back to 2000, that really wasn't necessarily communicated to me where I was. And so instead of mentorship, I looked at it as who was I looking up to within the organization, and who had my best interests at heart, who was seeing me and what I was doing and was going to take care of the rest. I really think about this as, for most of us who work at a company, we don't get to dictate when we get promoted and when we get new responsibilities. That is actually in the hands of somebody else. But we certainly need to show up. We certainly need to prove we're capable of it. And then that other person needs to do what, they've been given the responsibility to do, which is create new leaders, identifying the folks like myself. And so everywhere I was at every stage in my career, there was that person who I felt like this person sees me. They have my best interest at heart. They have the power and the ability to change what I'm doing, to promote me, to do all of those things. And so I feel like I'm in a good place. And so call them a mentor if you want. I thought of them as essentially my guardian angel in certain ways. And they were the people I was going to wake up for and do the best I could every single day. And so slightly different to mentorship. To me, it was like, who is that person at that company that sees you?
That's wonderfully put. Wonderfully put. To see somebody, to understand somebody is a gift. So do you do that every day with the people that you're responsible for? Every single day when you're in a meeting, or you're having a one-on-one with somebody, or you're communicating cross-culturally, how do you approach your role as CEO in that regard?
My thinking is leaders create leaders, right? And so those leaders helped me become a leader. And like I said, to me, that was the difference maker for me, and how I operated sort of my career. And so, yes, I'm doing the exact same thing. And I'm going out there and making sure I identify people who I see have the talent, have the drive, the motivation, whether that's going to be here or somewhere else. And it doesn't really have to be, a one-way path of they must stay at Rakuten and they must become the next C of something at Rakuten. I want everybody here to be successful in one way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I'm out there going and trying to make sure those people are seen by me, and know that, as they continue to deliver and as opportunities arise, they won't be forgotten, and those opportunities will be presented to them. So, I certainly think of that as as sort of a key ingredient of how I show up, as a leader, but also how I think Rakuten can differentiate itself. We are a big company, but we're also a big company that tries to operate in small company ways. And we've got thousands of employees, but I still think there's an opportunity for every leader, not just myself, but every leader here, to find those people, and make sure that they're seen.
Listen, I want to tell you something. I want to compliment you. The way you present your company values and your whole ecosystem internationally, or in the Americas or Japan, is wonderfully put on your website. And I'm going to read something and I want you to comment on it and then dovetail into Rakuten rewards. But I have to read this to you. In Japanese, Rakuten stands for optimism. This philosophy lies at the core of our brand. Walk together, express our dedication to building a better, more optimistic future by empowering individuals, businesses, and societies to realize their dreams. That's just the first paragraph. I can go on and on, but that means something. I can tell that you parallel those values in how you lead every day. So tell me about that, the importance of optimism and empowering not only the people that work at Rakuten, but so everybody can win, the customers, the employees, and somebody who perhaps is on the fringe of becoming a Rakuten member, right into your app, into your world. Tell us about how seriously you take that notion.
We take it very seriously because words are easy to put on paper. To execute it, and to execute it, across borders, internationally, across a number of different businesses, is very hard to do. And I give a lot of credit to this company, all the way from the founder down to, all employees, to be able to do that in everything that we do, in every industry that we play in. I think is a real testament to this company. And look, optimism, being in multiple different industries means you've got competitive factors and other companies and macro conditions that are always impacting you. And so that element of optimism and knowing that whatever we do today, we can do better tomorrow is a key part of how we show up. I also think, the way we present ourselves, the fact that we're a Japanese company, at the end of the day, we can't get away from that. And I really believe we need to be true to who we are. We shouldn't try to be faking anything here. We are a Japanese company. Yes, we're trying to operate internationally, but I think being a Japanese company and taking, the best of what Japanese culture has to offer allows us to be unique and allows us to show up differently in the world and in obviously a very competitive employee market. So I love that aspect of it. I love taking those elements and trying to find ways that we can land them in different cultures and different parts of the world, but still be very true to who we are. And so, yeah, I mean, those words are very powerful and they mean a lot to us. There are different parts of how we operate and how we show up on a day-to-day basis that are very different to many other companies. But I like that aspect of it and allows us to talk about ourselves differently than other companies.
Amit, let me follow up on something you said because you're a worldwide company based in Japan, offices around the world. How do you unite all the employees? How do you get everybody to be part of the optimism and the values that you state on your website and obviously talk about in meetings and throughout your culture? How do you do that? How do you get a global community to all believe in and execute and be part of one mission?
Every Monday, we get together and we have what we call an asakai, which is sort of the Japanese form of all hands. Regardless of where you are, we have it that's convenient for that time zone. And we talk about all different businesses, and so ensuring that everybody, regardless of what they're working on, are very educated on all parts of the business. That's sort of one aspect. What happens right after that is we ask every employee to go back and clean their desk and clean their chair. That concept here in the US is foreign. I've never had to do that at any other company, but we do that here. Why? Because we expect people to appreciate and understand that taking care of your stuff is very important, not just for yourself, but the community that you're in. The community being the person who sits next to you, the person who sits in front of you. You start to expand that, and now you've got a whole company that are performing these things in unison that is very powerful. So I just give you a couple of examples of things that you may not have seen or heard about at other companies that make us unique, that allow us to sort of create that tie across all of us throughout the world.
What was your reaction when you did that personally for the first time? Because I think that is fascinating. And I really identify with that. And I really embrace the uniqueness that you just explained. But back to you. When you first did that the first time, what was your first reaction?
I can't tell you that on this podcast because you'd have to bleep it out. But this is what I really enjoy about my job, because when you tell somebody to do that, and I can give you another example, which is we ask people to wear badges, a badge that has their photo and has their name and has values behind them. Again, that's not something people expect to. I don't know any other company that requires you to do that. When you tell people to do these things, their first reaction is, why the hell am I doing that? Or what do I need to do that? To me, I love the idea of getting behind the actual action itself, what you're asking them to do, and the meaning. So as I explained to you, the idea of cleaning your desk is not so that we can save money on janitorial services or anything else. It's really helping people understand the value of their space, keeping their space clean, and the importance of that to the people around them, right? And so if we can infuse that into the way we show up in business, we will have a competitive advantage. The badge is there because we want to be able to greet everybody by their name. Greeting people by their name in Japan is showing respect to that other individual. Being a company of our size, you're not going to know everybody's name. You're not going to have met everybody. This enables you to do that. The other important element of it is behind the badge are some of our values, and those values, keeping those values close to our heart, again, allows you to sort of really start to appreciate, how do we show up? How do we want to show up differently? Why is this more than just a job that I'm going to do? And so once you get to explaining those things, people get beyond the idea of, oh, I need to get down on my knees and clean my chair and clean my desk, or I need to put this badge on every day. That doesn't become the conversation. It's the why that becomes the conversation.
I love the why. You explain that perfectly, and I understand it, and it makes sense, and I'm sure it does to our listeners as well. So, Amit, you're the CEO of Rakuten Americas. When you have a meeting and you're about to, obviously it has to be virtual because you can't get everybody, a company that large, into one room. That would be quite hard. It'd be Oracle Park in San Francisco to pull that off. But when you approach a meeting and prepare for a meeting, what are your goals in a general sense, your communication style, how transparent you are, and how you want to deliver messaging?
I have always tried to stick to this idea of know exactly what you're going to talk about, be passionate about it, again, regardless of what it is. And when you're passionate about it, you can speak about it without looking scripted, without reading a script, and make it a one-on-one conversation. Even if it's you and 1,000 people in the room on Zoom, doesn't matter. You really need to think about this as a one-on-one conversation. And a one-on-one conversation is not you reading a script. It's you reading the room. It's you talking from your heart. It's you understanding the subject matter, and speaking freely, just like I'm trying to speak with you here. Is how I try to do every single meeting, regardless of whether it's on a one-on-one basis, 1 on 10, or 1 on 1,000. And so I'm very lucky. I had to do that starting from the age of 10. And so I go back to sort of some of my school days when I was told as a kid to stand up and present to people double my age. And very fortunate that I got to do that, because it was that experience that really helped me sort of execute it in that same way, even to this day.
And you talked about being passionate about the topic. People can tell if you're passionate or sincere about the topic in which you're talking about. So let's get to a topic that I know you're passionate about, and it's Rakuten Rewards. Can you describe how much that is an integral part of what you're trying to accomplish and have accomplished as the number one shopping app in America?
Yeah, so that's actually where I came from, and so a lot of my passion comes from this. Is a business I've been working for over 13 plus years now. So going back a little bit, like I said, Rakuten, a Japanese company, has built a phenomenal business. They're operating in all different markets, e-commerce, financial services, communication, you name it, they do it. But despite being in all these different businesses, it's built on this idea of creating a very loyal membership audience, and rewarding them for their decisions. Again, regardless of what the decision is, if it's something to buy, whether it's financial services related, it's a membership audience with rewards. And like I said, going back 10 plus years, the idea was, how do we take that and deploy it in other parts of the world? We want that same philosophy to exist outside of Japan. That was the impetus for Rakuten to acquire a company called Ebates back in 2014. And that's the company that I joined in 2010, which was at the time and also now the number one shopping app in the US and in Canada. And what I mean by that is it's an app that allows you to shop thousands of retailers just the way you do today, whether it's the Best Buys, the Macy's, Saks, Nordstrom, Walmart, Target, the list goes on and on. Using Rakuten, you can shop those retailers, like I said, just as you do today, and earn a percentage of what you spend back in the form of cashback. And that cashback can range from a couple percent all the way up to 50%. So it can be meaningful dollars back on every purchase that you make. And like I said, the Warriors were a big part of that. But yeah, that's how we show up today. That's what most people know about us. We've had several Super Bowl commercials to help garner some brand awareness. There's more than that we do, but that's ultimately what people generally know us for.
Well said. Amit, what keeps you up at night as a CEO?
Well, we're an international company, so I have meetings 24/7. So mostly what's keeping me up is meetings with other parts of, this company. But I knew I was transitioning from, how I grew up, being very hands-on, being very involved from a marketing standpoint, from a product standpoint, from a data standpoint. When I evolved to being a leader, when the first thing I did or what I thought about at night was not the numbers and the business and what product launches we were what product launch we were working on, to thinking about the people. And like I said, we got people in all parts of the world. We face challenges operating in different parts of the world. To me, that was the trigger of like, okay, I'm not the person now that's going to go write a SQL query or go write product requirements or participate in a brainstorming session about a marketing campaign. I'm here responsible for making sure everybody is safe, and everybody has the best platform they have to deliver their responsibility. And so, honestly, what keeps me up at night is making sure that is just that is every employee is safe and has everything they need to be successful. That is sort of my number one priority, and I think obviously the key part of my role. Beyond that, I mean, I think about how technology is evolving much faster than it has evolved in the last 25 years. And so really thinking about everything that gets thought about and talked about, what's here to stay, and those things that are here to stay, how they're going to impact how we do business today. Because anytime something like that changes, it creates a lane for different competitive pressures, and everybody's gunning for us. We're the number one in a number of different industries, so we're the ones, just like the Warriors, everybody's trying to take down. So those are the kinds of things I spend my nights thinking about.
What advice would you give to an emerging leader? Somebody perhaps that you've seen on your team, somebody that is, you are mentoring either directly or indirectly, part of your ecosystem at Racketon, or somebody in another industry. What advice would you give somebody who wants to be a CEO someday?
Yeah. So I think there are two parts to this, right? There are people who aren't leaders today. And my advice to them is leadership is not a title, and leadership doesn't have to be given to you. There are many ways, regardless of who you are, that you can show leadership. And if you do that, you will garner the respect that you deserve, and people will follow you. I strongly believe in this idea and concept that you are more likely to get people to follow you based on how you behave and your actions than your title or what workday org charts might suggest. To those who are leaders already, and who have aspirations of becoming bigger leaders and moving up the org chart, I go back to something I said earlier. Know who sees you, know who is tuned into the way you operate, your philosophies, how you are demonstrating capabilities beyond the capacity or beyond sort of where you are today, and ensure you are very loyal to them. And when those opportunities arise, I guarantee you those people will take care of you. And when you're in a situation where that isn't the case, then I would argue that you've really got to ask the question: Am I doing the right things, or am I in a place that isn't the right place for me? But those are sort of the two bits of advice I give to people who are aspiring to be leaders and those who are leaders today.
As part of my NYU class that I teach, we study Steve Kerr. So if you look at the Golden State Warriors, they have strong ownership. They have Bob Myers as the GM, basketball personnel, all strong, and their head coach is tremendous, in my opinion. Have you gotten to know Steve Kerr, and what do you think of his leadership style?
We were obviously we're very fortunate to be extremely close with the Warriors team. And when I say team, I'm talking about not just the players on the court, the team off the court as well. We were very fortunate to invite them to Japan last October. So they came and played a game with the Washington two games against the Washington Wizards in Tokyo. And that was really an opportunity for us to get the Warriors out of their element. We're typically going to their home. We're going to Chase Center. We're going to their offices. We are guests of them. This was the first chance we really got to make them guests of ours in our hometown, in our backyard. And it was a great experience. You had the likes of Steve, Bob, and the team obviously there. And yeah, there were several opportunities to get to know folks, their partners, their likes, their dislikes, karaoke songs, you name it. And so, we had a fantastic few days in Tokyo. We did obviously get to know, like I said, the team better. And, what I would say about Steve is extremely humble. Knowing what he's accomplished, both as a player and a coach, it is very, very impressive to me how he carries himself. And is just, I think, a role model and example for anybody looking to be a leader in sports and outside sports. And so, great admiration for what he has accomplished, and very fortunate to be able to sort of learn a thing or two from him.
Amit, I've learned a thing or two from you. And you know what? You are the first CEO that has been on this podcast. And I thank you very, very much. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and would love to come back again sometime.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. And we thank Amit very much for being on the show. That was a wonderful conversation. My number one takeaway has two parts to it this week. When he self-reflected in his journey as a leader, and he felt he became a well-rounded leader when he started to care for the well-being of his people, in addition to being disruptive and innovative on the tech side. The second part of my takeaway is what he said about Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr and admiring his humility as part of his leadership journey. You could be tenacious, competitive, and you can go for your dreams, but remain humble. I thought that was very interesting and appreciated the entirety of that conversation. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, I am Chris Gargano, and we sincerely thank you for coming on and tuning in each and every week to keep the line moving.
We thank you for listening to Keep the Line Moving. We would love it if you subscribed or left a review. For more podcast episodes, check out our YouTube page. If you'd like to work with the Gargano Leadership Group, check out our website. This has been a GLG production, copyright 2023. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal. Have a great week, everyone.